Hello. Today I'll be discussing the murder of United Health CEO Brian Thompson. So, the public response to the murder of Brian Thompson has been remarkable for a couple reasons. Normally, when an average civilian is murdered, the public sympathy would be directed towards that individual. But in this case, more people have come out in support of the murderer rather than the man who was murdered being Brian Thompson. And this is solely because of the stark opposition in our country to the American healthcare system, in which Brian Thompson was a high ranking official, being the CEO of United Health. Um, for people to be in such stark opposition to the United Healthcare system as to villainize a man who was essentially just doing his job, it tells you a lot about our healthcare system, in my opinion. Um, and for that reason, I would like to detail the reasons for opposition to our healthcare system, because I do agree to said opposition. I am not in favor of the way that our healthcare system is performing or functions, although not so much as to villainize a man who was just doing his job and was murdered in cold blood. The response has been a little crazy. But, anyways, so this is opposition to the U.S. healthcare system. As seen in this graphic, on a per capita basis or per person, the United States spends more on healthcare than any other country in the world. And despite that reality, many people are being denied coverage when they really need it. And not all people have access to healthcare. Even though we are spending so much on it per person in this country, not all people have access to healthcare, and not all people are being covered when it comes time to afford really important healthcare services. And I just see that as being very unfortunate for one of the wealthiest countries in the world, that we can't prioritize people enough to even provide them service or make them feel as though if something does happen that we're gonna try and help them, you know? But so the as opposed to the United States current approach to healthcare, the alternative would be universal healthcare, as seen in Canada and other countries where healthcare is provided to everybody who needs it whenever they need it. And that's a general statement, because one of the things with it is the wait times go up, and there's different pros and cons to it, but essentially it's available to everybody when they need it. So this is the pros and cons of universal healthcare, and I'm just going to go through a few of them, but figured I would show you the graphic. So the pros of universal healthcare are that it is available to everybody, including the poor and the needy. It decreases stress and anxiety regarding healthcare, because it is insured to be provided to you whether you can afford it or not. And it ends up being cheaper very often than the U.S. approach to healthcare. As seen in the first graphic, we are paying more for healthcare than any other country in the world, despite the insufficient amount of care that our citizens are receiving. And the cons to the universal healthcare system are higher taxes to fund the system. Government administration tends to be less efficient than market forces. And free care leads to abuse of the system, i.e., people seeking unnecessary care. So those are the drawbacks, but in my opinion, making healthcare services available to everybody and alleviating our citizens of the burden of worrying about whether they can afford the really important medical expenses, I think that's the most important thing. And yeah, and tied in with that, not only is our healthcare system underperforming and overtaxing, asking for too much money from our citizens on a per person basis and per visit basis. We are also overcharging people for drugs in this country as well, as seen in this graphic. Nearly every drug, well, every drug on this list, at least, is much more expensive in this country than in Canada. And I feel like that ties in with the whole healthcare struggle also, because not only are we paying more for healthcare, we're paying more for the drugs that are going to be prescribed by those doctors. And so the whole health system, the whole pharmaceutical system, which are tied together in my mind, are overcharging people. It's not accessible enough, and it's not providing care to the people that need it, despite us being one of the wealthiest countries in the world. And I just see that as sad and unfortunate, and I think avoidable. So let me know if you agree. I hope you do.